Hey folks, Eshin here from All Wise Transformation with another segment talking about distress intolerance. And I have my awesome guest with me, Juno. Hi.
Hi. I told you you weren't going to get rid of me that easy.
What's going on, Juno? What have you been up to?
Just recently I took a trip to Easton Mountain, which is where we met. Super exciting.
Yay!
I got to spend a weekend there for Winter Spirit Camp, which was 80s themed, which we love an 80s theme. I mean, gays love a theme in general, but I mean, I was made in the 80s, so it feels very special to me. And
Did you wear any 80s themed outfit?
I had like lots of crop tops because that's very like 80s, and I had like those kind of like ponchos with the hoods that feel like rugs?
Yeah.
I had one of those, which was like super colorful, and that felt like 80s. And then they had a ball, like a ga ga ga
Yeah,
bow,
yeah,
like a
yeah, yeah,
Vogue
yeah,
ball,
yeah,
which was
yeah.
so much fun. And I got to be one of the judges for that. Um,
Aw.
so of course I was taking my job very seriously, and my outfit was inspired by Stevie Nicks' 1981 album Leather and Lace. So
I
I
love
wore a leather jacket, I wore lace panties, and I wore leather boots. And I was like, come at me, children. I'm
I
ready to.
love it.
So it was a lot of fun. I was really
Nice.
happy to be part of it.
Was it a Friday to Sunday?
Um, yes. Yeah, it was a Friday to a Monday actually.
A Monday. Okay.
Because there was
Oh,
President's
President's
Day or
Day.
whatever.
Was it
Yeah,
President's Day weekend? Yeah.
yeah. I don't celebrate that day, but I'm just saying.
That's fair. That's fair. So we're gonna do part two today, folks. What was it? What it's been? What 3 weeks since I think we since I posted 2 weeks. Oh, 2 weeks. Oh wow. Um, and last time we started off with introduction to what is distress intolerance. We talked about the paradox of distress intolerance, and I feel like um,
Wait,
distress
wait,
intolerance.
wait. We
Huh?
had a fun question last time too. We did fun
Oh,
questions
oh.
first.
All right. You got me on that one. You got me on that one.
I
Okay,
think just because like it is like a little bit of a serious topic that we're delving into and stuff.
that is fair. That is fair. Okay. You ready for the question?
Yeah.
Okay. What sorry. Would you rather have had feet? Wait, hold on. Would you rather have hands? Okay. Would you rather have hands for feet or feet for hands?
Hands. So if I had hands for feet, I would still have hands for hands, right?
Yes. So would you rather have hands for feet or feet for hands? So it'd be the reverse. So your hands would be your feet or your feet would be your hands, but they wouldn't be in the regular order. So your hands would be your feet, or your feet would be your hands. So would you rather have?
I'd rather have my hands on my feet because I'd rather have like four sets of hands that I could like do things with.
Yeah.
And
I
also, the idea of always being in a handstand is kind of hilarious to me.
that is true. I feel like I would want to have my feet for my hands.
Okay.
Just sort of just like I don't know. I feel like I don't know. There's something like because sometimes I grab things with my toes.
Me too.
And so I feel like just trying to do the dishes like with my with my feet.
Would you use like grippy socks to do the dishes?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I would use
Right?
yeah. Grippy socks. Yes. Yeah.
That's interesting.
All right, ready for the next one?
Yes. And then I have a fun metaphysical thing to share.
Oh yeah. What's the most useless talent you have?
Hmm. Um, I could fit my fist in my mouth, but I think that has a use to some capacity. So, I guess it really depends on what you view as useless, but what about you?
um, useless talent. Oh, I don't know. I feel like shaving my head without using a mirror.
That is incredible.
I feel like I just go like this, and I feel like I know what track I'm going on, and not I haven't not that I don't use mirrors, I do, but like I feel like I like a majority of the time I'm just shaving without even looking in the mirror.
I think that's impressive. So useless or not, I think that's impressive.
No mirrors need apply.
You said, I don't know her. Who's she?
So catch it. What do you got over there? What's the little?
So my metaphysical moment of the day, or whatever you can say, is I just wanted to talk about the High Priestess in Tarot because today is 2/22 when we're recording this. So it's like for many people like repetitive numbers and stuff like that. It's like angel numbers, or on those days, they're known as portals. So, like, today is a day for intuition because the High Priestess is all about intuition. And there's a bunch of symbolism within the confines of this card based in like Jewish mysticism, like Kabbalah and stuff like that. And it was put together by actually a Christian mystic, but whatever. So, the two columns represent like Boaz and Joaquin, which are like the names of pillars in Jewish mysticism. The uh the tapestry behind her, you can see it's like separating from like a body of water, so that's like suggests like initiation into the inner realm or like the deeper mysteries of life. The pomegranates represent fertility and abundance. The scroll of the Torah represents like wisdom, and the moon presence in both places represents like cycles, intuition, like relation to the divine feminine. So it just might be a fun time to reflect on those things and see how they show up for you in your life, in your daily. Um, if you see this
What
today
were
or
the
whenever you
columns
see it.
again? What did they represent again?
Boaz and Joaquin. So if you study Kabbalah, you'll see like the tree of life has kind of like two distinct sides, and then there's the middle path. The middle path, fun fact, called the path of madness, is always the way. Following the middle pillar. But yeah, it's just like severity and mercy, like those types of like the balance of humanity and life and stuff.
Nice.
So highly suggest we dive into the deeper mysteries. We don't just live life on the surface. That's what my invitation to you is for today.
Taken the invitation.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Any new projects that you have going on that you're getting ready to do, or
Yeah, I actually shared part of it with you the other night. I'm in the process of writing a book of poetry, which is meant to be very confronting.
oh, let me just say the pieces that you've shared with me are very spicy and juicy, and I love
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was very much inspired by you, so thank you because um because I have historically had a processing disability where taking it from what's in my mind to what's written out is has been a challenge for me. But your encouragement was just, I guess, all I needed to decide like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna try to write this stuff down and like get it in this format. And so I use I would like to be completely transparent about how I use ChatGPT
it.
because for me, it's not a problem with like getting the ideas out. It's kind of like the systemic organizing of the ideas that's a real challenge for me. So what I do is I write probably more than I need to, like a lot of like just feelings and
Do
thoughts.
you handwrite or do you like type it up? Because I feel like for me, if I do write, not that I'm a writer, but when I do write, I like handwriting stuff before I type it in. Does that make a difference for you, or do you like automatically just start typing stuff in?
So for it depends. If I'm doing magical writing, like writing with the intention of like I'm gonna turn it into a sigil and I'm gonna carve it onto a candle or I'm gonna use it in a spell, then that is all handwritten for
Yeah.
me. because like it's a different type of process.
Yeah.
Um, and with creative writing, like poetry and stuff like that, I actually do just go right to typing because now that now ChatGPT organizes my thoughts for me, so I don't need to like be so critical of the process. I don't need to worry about spelling. I don't need to do any of that. So I just kind of write all of it out. And then once I'm done writing it, at the bottom, I'll put like, organize this in this way so that it conveys this feeling. And like, yeah. And like, I'll give it a few different prompts around like how I want it to convey the message. And it cleans it up very nicely.
Yeah.
And you've read some of the stuff.
Yeah, there was one that was really juicy that was very sort of like sensual, and I was like, "Ooh, I could smell the sweat. I could feel the pulsating blood." I was like, "Yes, please."
Yeah, yeah. It's very much meant to um I think that right now with our current administration, I hate to always bring it back to this, but like
Wait, okay,
because
so you have to. Okay, can I share the title, the subtitle that you gave?
of the piece, like of the whole thing.
No, well, not the whole thing, but there was a subtitle that you sent me that I really sort of just like loved. So the so you sent me a couple of pieces. So the first piece was "Make Me Gape," and
No,
then
no, no, no. I don't want you to share that. I'm sorry.
okay,
That's the title of the book and the subtitle of the book. So like I
okay,
don't
okay,
want to
okay,
talk about that yet.
okay. But
So
can I
like
just say that
can you
subtitle?
edit it out somehow?
Okay, I will. Okay,
Okay.
all right. Sorry about that.
No, yeah, I'm just not prepared to share that part with
Okay.
people. You can talk about like the piece or like a piece of it, but not that.
All right. But but that subtitle I just loved.
Yeah,
I just
it's
really
meant to be
love that.
confronting and um it's meant to like because of our current administration and they're trying to like actively silence us, like basically, I'm like, no. So it's inspired me to be louder than ever. And I think all queer people should be louder than ever. And not just queer people, like anyone that is a minority and that this organization is not highlighting, we need to use our voice and we need to be louder than ever.
Yeah. 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 Crazy times that we're in, huh?
And actually,
But
fuck it. Just say the title and the subtitle. It's fine. You can do it. I changed my mind.
but I just want to share that like
No, no, no.
I'm just surprised that you haven't like written anything before, right? Like I hear that about the struggle with sort of like the processing piece, but just the writing itself is just very like I don't know, just I don't know, it's just very beautiful. And I'm just surprised that I think you said that you've done cookbooks, which I'm like, oh, that's great, but like poetry, I sort of feel like that's your jam. Like
Thank you.
I haven't read the cookbook piece that you sent me. But I was like all for that the sensual poetry that you sent me.
Well, I guess we'll talk about it really quick. Um, it is the piece is called "Make Me Gape," and the subtitle is a collection of poems for Republican and other people with Christian values. That is the title and the subtitle. Um, and yeah, I wanted to kind of take the trajectory of the musical Cabaret. Like I'm using that as a framework because I don't know if you've seen Cabaret or if anyone out there's seen Cabaret. It's a great show. But basically at the beginning it's like a big party and everyone's like having the best time. But it's set in 1930s Germany, which is like not far from where we are right now. So, um, I want it to kind of follow that same arc of like at the beginning there's all these lustful fun pieces and then like as we move through the book it gets a little bit darker
Mm,
and
mm.
uh it
That
kind of
last
like
piece that you sent me was pretty dark. That last piece that you sent me. But
yeah that
I loved it though because I was like I'm there for it. But I was feeling it. I was definitely feeling it. Of yeah.
I'm well that's so it's going to be a collection of 80 pieces and right now I have 10 that are done and I have 11 others that are I'm editing that's the other thing so like when I write something um I'll write it and I'll get the initial like feedback from ChatGPT or whatever, and then I'll pull it down and I'll be like, I don't like this word. I don't like get this out of here. I like this idea better. And it's like several hours of editing basically then and like reshaping things.
Nice.
So, I
Nice.
mean, I it's in a process, but I think that I do about like 4 or 5 poems a day. So hopefully that'll be done within the next month or so.
I love that. Why the specific 80? Why that number?
I was looking um online at just what constitutes a collection of poetry and
Mm,
what number of poems is like publishable as a full work, as a total work. And the number that I consistently came up with was like 50 to 80. And I like the idea of 80 instead of 50.
yeah.
The number 8 is synonymous with like abundance, but also balance and like the infinitude of the universe. So I was like, why not lean into 8? Let's do that.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Um,
I love it.
and I figure I'm 41, so it's like also within the numerology of my vibe.
Yeah. You don't look like you're in your 40s, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
All right, you ready to get into this?
I'm so ready.
um, so the definition of distress intolerant is a perceived inability to fully experience unpleasant, adverse, or uncomfortable emotions and is accompanied by a desperate need to escape the uncomfortable emotion, right? Which I feel like is a lot of people, right?
Yeah. I mean, no one likes being uncomfortable.
No.
And show me someone that says they like being uncomfortable, and I'll show you a liar. Like, that's how I feel about that. I think that you can say fairly and honestly that like, oh, I grow from uncomfortable situations, or oh, I can transmute that and turn it into something positive. But I don't think anyone actively likes being uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, not at all, not at all. And so I'm trying to figure out what are am I distress intolerant? So how can somebody tell? And so they give us a list of possible ideas if I am distress intolerance. And and I'm going to read a couple of them and to let folks know like oh if you resonate with this probably means that you are struggling with feeling uncomfortable or the idea of emotions is really uncomfortable for you. So feeling distress or upset is unbearable to me. When I feel distress or upset, all I can think about is how bad I feel. I can't handle feeling distress or upset. My feelings of distress are so intense that they completely take over. There is nothing worse than feeling distress or upset. And it sort of goes on from there. And so if you could um, identify some of those feelings, um, then it then you're then you're probably struggling with feeling intolerant of your own emotions, right?
Yeah. I mean, I once heard Joan Rivers quote Winston Churchill, and I believe this is the correct quote, but basically, like, if you're going through hell, keep going.
Mm,
And, like, not to say to disregard your feelings by any stretch, but, like, don't get stuck in the feelings is
right,
kind of
right,
my take on it. Like, if you're feeling upset, feel the upset, but ask why you're feeling the upset.
right. Because I think one of the examples that they give in the workbook is that your feelings is sort of like a beach ball, right? And if you're in the water, have you ever like been to the pool and you have a little beach ball with you and you try to push the beach ball down under the water and you sort of like could sort of push it under, but it doesn't stay there, right? And so you have to constantly be pushing it. And then eventually you sort of get tired or something happens and it sort of like pops back up again. And so that's sort of what distress is, right? You're trying to push the emotions down, but they're not going to stay down, right? Like the idea is to how am I going to ride these feelings? How am I going to sort of just flow with what's coming up for me?
And I think with anything, when it is unexpressed, whether that be distress or creativity, um, when you push something down, it just metastasizes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it doesn't, it's not going to be good.
Right. 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 Yeah. And I feel like I'm curious, like why do you think people just don't talk about feelings? You know, for us, right? And I think in our fields, we're all talking about feelings instead of being in the moment. And even like before we started this particular segment, I was like, Juno, help me ground myself because I'm feeling so anxious. So I'm curious, like from your perspective, why do you think some folks really struggle with not being
I
there with
think
their
that
feelings?
generally speaking, uh, as a culture, we don't really embrace uh, processing feelings or like if there's not an aspect of efficiency to a
Yeah.
behavior, frequently it's disregarded as not valuable.
Yeah.
And that's why you have a lot of people that are so like self-hating or like outwardly projecting violent thoughts because they're not processing their feelings.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
um it's just the value isn't placed there societally. And I think that we are moving towards a place where that's much more embraced and stuff like that. And I think that that's been a trend over the last 20 to 30 years where really people are stepping into seeing value in feelings on a wider scale, not
Yeah.
just in the like woo woo like touchy-feely places. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that people are starting to understand that expressing and understanding your feelings has greater implications.
Yeah.
And I think that for a really long time that just wasn't valued because it's almost like not that they want to turn people into computers, but like there's such a focus on like efficiency and we're not meant to do that.
Yeah.
That's not what this machine is for.
Yeah.
Like this meat suit does not process in the same way that the computer in front of us does. And we need to acknowledge that and embrace it. Like
I,
we're not machines. We are,
yeah.
but we're not.
Very. We're organic, right? Organic machines, and I just love that term, meat suit. They're just something. They're just something um really funny, or I don't know, really humbling to think about. Just meat suits that are sort of just walking around that are like these synthetic, or maybe that's the wrong word, but I don't know. We're still part of nature. We're organic, but yet everything that we do is so cerebral, right? Like it's really the brain that's sort of controlling the body and making us move. And you know, I don't know if I'm making any sense.
Well, I think, in my opinion, my personal belief system, my BS, I think that we're ultimately a soul that is housed in this thing, and I think that our it's all just an expression of the soul and like how we want to show up in the world and things like that.
Yeah,
So, um, yeah, I think that it's just like a container for
yeah,
what little bit of divinity we have inside of us.
yeah. Yeah, container. I think that was what I was looking for container. So in the workbook, it talks about healthy distress, right? So they give us a spectrum of extreme intolerant and then extreme tolerant. And then when we're talking about like finding that middle road or finding that middle ground, you know, they talk about balance, and I sort of struggle using the word balance. I don't know, maybe like compromise or perspective. I don't know if that's the word I want to use. Harmony, maybe harmony or proportion, finding the right proportion. I think is probably the word I'm looking for. And
Might
so
I venture as to why you don't like the word balance? Because I think maybe I have an idea.
yeah, I I just don't think it's possible, right? I feel like anything that I've done in my life, either I put all my energy and attention into it, and then there's all these other things I have to sort of negotiate, either relationship or job, and so it never feels like I'm I'm balanced, right? And I don't really fully think balance. I feel like balance is it's a very sort of going back to a term that you used in our last session is very sort of capitalistic, in the sense of like you have to have the right proportion, and once you find the right proportion then everything's going to be okay, but it's not like, the relationships I've been in, like usually one person is a little bit more financially stable, and sometimes I've been more financially stable. Some person that I've dated, they're a little bit more dramatic, and sometimes I've been a little bit more dramatic, and so it never seems to sort of, and even like, parenting, right? Like love my folks, but trying to do a full-time job raising kids, that, and people like, oh, you need to find a balance, and I don't necessarily feel that that's, I feel like balance is a myth. I don't know, what do you think about that?
I think that balance or the concept of balance is one of like a stagnant stop. You know what I mean? Like when
Yeah,
things are balanced, you don't move anymore because you
yeah,
don't want to disrupt the balance.
right,
But I think that the striving, that's like thinking that life is a destination when ultimately life is a journey.
yeah,
And so I
yeah,
think that there are aspects of balance, but I like harmony better because
yeah,
harmony is like more of a like more melodic and more in motion and in flow. And I think that with things like harmony, there's allowances for variance. That
yeah.
with balance, it's like 4 ounces is 4 ounces, and that's it.
Right, 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 and yeah, in cooking, I think, like, yeah, you want to find the right balance, but even then, like, sometimes you put a little bit more salt or a little bit more spice, then that sort of throws it off a little bit, and then I think that varies for each individual, right? Like, I like spicy food. I know some people don't like spicy food, and I'm like, oh,
I don't
that's a
trust
little.
them. Controversially up brave. If you don't like spicy food or chocolate, we're probably not each other's people.
I think there's a little bit of truth to that. Um, so when you are not in harmony, or when you are not in proportion with either extreme intolerant or extreme tolerant, right? It feels like you it feels like you feel a little lost. And the work is, how do you find your way through finding the healthy proportion in being able to understand or sit in your feelings. And so I think some of the examples they sort of give about like the extreme tolerant is like never, especially if you're on the extreme side of the spectrum, right? Never acting or changing the circumstances, always feeling as if uh, the extreme is never a healthy place to be, right? And so my point is, the extreme is never the healthy place to be, right? because
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
once you're sort of off balance, right, these other behaviors, right, the avoidance, or using substances, or engaging in things to help you either numb yourself, or to help you sort of feel quote unquote more normal, right? And so that throws the harmony off kilter. And so part of that, right, like, yeah, you want to be aware of where are you on that spectrum of either intolerant or tolerant, right? And there's sort of like a sort of like a middle place to be.
Yeah. Like the I don't want to say like finding the middle path, but like if our if our emotions, right? If they're a pendulum and they swing from like extreme happy to like extreme despair or whatever, it's about finding how to like kind of float in this area of the bell curve so
Yes.
that we're always kind of like I don't want to say always functioning optimally, but like so that our nervous system is never dysregulated to the point where it is hazardous to our health or like negatively impacting our daily process. Like we can make we can make distress work for us. And I think that having a set of tools to do that is key.
Right.
I do that with yoga and breath work and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that the workbook talked about is sort of like where does it how does it develop? How do we develop like the inability to tolerate our feelings, right? Two things that they talk about is like the biological factor and the environmental, right? I think there are some people who are just more predisposed to stress. They have a low tolerance for stress. And then the environmental factors is like, that if you're seeing people not managing their stress or not managing their emotions, you're gonna pick that up.
Yeah.
And so, I don't necessarily think like one is better than the other, but it's just being aware that environmental factors and sort of like your personality and sort of your biological makeup, because sometimes people who have illnesses, they have a low tolerance to be able to manage, right? Like if you have chronic illness, like you may not be fully present, but because that energy is going towards the healing process, that energy is trying to stay healthy, whatever that looks like. And so those two factors of where we learn that from.
And I think that like queer and minority people in general are constantly asked to like endure,
Mm,
which leads to like a harmful form of distress intolerance where you're just tolerating existence, kind of, where you're just like, you're not really, you don't, you don't have the, not that you don't have the skill set, but like, because we're taught to just like endure and face it and go through it, we don't really get to process it a lot of the time.
yeah,
And I think that, like, I know that this workbook essentially is like, talks about moving people through the emotions and like the four workbooks actually, because there are four of them, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like that's the goal of the series, but I think that we really need to learn to put in the work to help ourselves
yeah,
basically.
yeah,
Because in many community, like I know that for myself, I mean, I was brought up in a very supportive family and all that, but I had a single mom for like several years, because my dad passed away when I was young, and um, like I saw her be stressed. I saw like all of that stuff. And to me that turned into me being like, okay, we have to do all we can to not like put stress on mom. Like that
mm-hmm,
type of thing,
mm-hmm,
which taught me like later not the best coping techniques for myself. Um, but I've processed and eventually worked through that and those patterns and I discovered where they came from and stuff. But I think that lots of times we just again, like you said, we just push it down and that's not the answer.
yeah. I know for me growing up in a immigrant household, right? Like the idea was, you sort of work. And so my parents were hardly ever home. And so for folks who don't know latchkey kids, right? Like I would come home after school and there would like either I would make cereal or my mom would have something in the fridge ready for me. And so I would be home until my folks, like after school, I would be home until my folks got home. And sometimes that's maybe 7, 8 o'clock, right? And so a lot of my time was spent alone. And then when my folks were home, like they just didn't have the language or just the emotional availability. Not saying that my folks didn't love me, not saying my folks weren't there for me. Like they definitely provided, but just emotionally, there wasn't a conversation about how are you feeling today? How was school today? Right. And so it's sort of like get through the day, these are the things that need to get done. These are the tasks, these are the errands. Let's go to church, right? Like so it becomes sort of like a very task orientated focus. And I feel like my folks, more so my dad, um, he shows love through buying you things or taking you places. Like that's great. Don't get me wrong. Like Christmases and sometimes birthdays. I got some really nice stuff. But I never heard, "Oh, I love you," or "Are you sad today?" Like just a conversation about feelings just was not um in my household. That just
And you know
wasn't a
what?
thing.
Maybe it's also not that they didn't want to do that, but maybe they also didn't have the energy for that because they were so busy working their asses off. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And like, let's also acknowledge that like it takes a lot to do that. And sometimes even if they can tell and they want to be there for you, they just might not have had the energy for it.
No, yeah, I completely agree. Completely agree. And I feel like, sort of going to your point, that's how we, I think, as a society, we're just always sort of just on the go, the next thing, or the swipe culture, or sort of like the doom scrolling, right? Like it's it's the avoidance of sitting and sharing your feelings with somebody, like calling a friend, or sort of just like acknowledging, like, I'm feeling lonely or I'm feeling sad, like sort of sitting in that, and not saying that that's tolerable and that you should do that all the time, but I think finding that sort of sweet spot with that work.
Yeah, absolutely. Or find an artistic way to express it. Like in many ways, like other than you encouraging me to write poetry, um, like I love a creative outlet, whether that be cooking or poems or whatever. Like it's just I need to get it out when I feel it because if
Yeah,
it festers, it's gonna be bad for me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I do realize that in my last relationship, that I really, I don't know if struggle is the right word, but I really had a difficult time to share myself. And I think probably part of that is it was a long distance relationship.
Mm,
Because I live in Vermont, and they lived in Albany, and so that's for folks, that's about an hour and 40 hour 30 drive. For some folks that's nothing, but that's technically a long distance relationship.
totally. If you can't be like, I'm gonna stop by for coffee, it's a long distance relationship.
Right,
That's
right,
how I define it.
right. Yeah, if I can't come over to do my laundry, yeah, it's a long distance relationship.
Yeah.
um Beliefs, belief systems about distress and tolerance, right?
Hmm.
So some of the beliefs on is, I can't stand this. This is unbearable. I hate this feeling. I must stop this feeling. I must get rid of this feeling. Take it away. I can't cope with this feeling. I will lose control. That's a big one for me. Losing control. There's something about appearing like I don't have my shit together. Like that, and I've been working on that. That sometimes that irks me. Like, oh, Eshin, why don't you have your shit together? Right? Like, I want to appear like I'm in control, and control is an illusion, right?
Yes, thank you for saying it. Thank you for saying it.
It really is. It
It's
really is.
totally fake.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so when we're speaking about how do you identify the intolerability, is what is the belief that you have about the situation? What is the belief you hold, either about yourself in the either about yourself in the situation, or the belief that you hold that is making it unbearable to manage, to think, to move through. And so that's the first step, is identifying what is the belief that I have here, right?
And then to build onto that, I would say the second step in addition of like what am I feeling here is my favorite question, which is like where does that come from?
Mm,
Like who gave that to me? Or is it mine? Did I come up with this myself? But
right.
like I find that at the root of many things that are stressors for me or cause distress for me
Yeah,
is usually someone else's voice and not my own.
yeah, yeah. So I'm going to ask you, what does it mean to you when I start feeling uncomfortable emotions?
When I start feeling uncomfortable emotions, it means that I have to pay attention to it.
Yeah,
Um, Not that it's like good or bad, right or wrong, but it means that my body is trying to tell me something.
Yeah.
And my body is trying to tell me something that maybe I don't intellectually have the words for yet.
Yeah.
And so when I feel a distress, I'm like, what is this? Where is this coming from?
Mhm.
Like those are the things that I feel when I feel distress.
Yeah, I feel like when what does it mean to me when I start feeling uncomfortable emotions? Again, it goes back to feeling out of control. I think it also goes back to not wanting to be vulnerable.
Hmm.
There's something about being vulnerable that is very scary, at least for me. And I really struggle with that aspect.
Well, the current,
I don't want people to take advantage of me, and not saying like the group of
Mhm.
people or the people that I associate with are malicious in that sense, but growing up I was bullied. Like growing up, like no one really took the time to be like, oh, okay, you had a really bad day, let's talk about this, or even had someone to stand up for me, right? I really, as a queer person of color, um that that's that's some baggage.
Yeah, totally. And I think that generally we're like vulnerability is not societally conditioned as like a good thing
Mm-mm.
right now. You know what I mean? Like vulnerability in many ways is associated with weakness. But
Mm.
like
Mm.
really, truly, vulnerability is power
Mm.
because
Mm.
vulnerability allows us to transmute feelings
Yeah.
and allows us to move through them.
Yeah.
It takes it takes strength to ask for help.
Yeah. And we're
Because
conditioned not to.
think about when you've needed the most amount of help in your life, right? And you were feeling like vulnerable and hurt and like frustrated or scared. Like the bravest thing you can do is ask for help.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Sorry if that was heavy.
No, no. But the conversation about being able to tolerate emotions is a heavy conversation, right? Like I don't think there's a way around it. When we're talking about being able to tolerate uncomfortable feelings, we have to be able to move into the uncomfortable feelings, and that is in itself very heavy.
Yeah.
Specifically, if you don't have the language or the skills or the model to help you navigate that.
And honestly, I think I might have said this before, but social work, career-wise, was the worst for me. But and not even worse, like it was bad, because it was just a lot. It was a lot of emotion. It was a lot of whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
Not appropriate, not appropriately compensated monetarily, whatever. But that degree has helped me as a person and with interpersonal relationships in my life so much. It was the most valuable degree I ever got.
and I feel like it's also sort of set the groundwork for your business, right?
Yeah,
Like,
in many ways. And I didn't realize that either, but like that's just the divine dance of the universe like playing itself out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I invite us, and I invite our viewers to really acknowledge that it's okay to do the heavy work, and maybe you do small portions, like you sort of bite, take little small bites about, okay, the first step is just acknowledging I'm feeling uncomfortable. That's just the first step. You don't necessarily have to do anything about it. You don't necessarily have to call anybody or feel like you need to invest anything, but just acknowledging or just being aware that there is a feeling that's coming up. Because again, I think we said this in our last segment, that emotions are just there for us to just to pay attention. Just
Yeah.
pay attention. That's all.
I also think something that's important that we shouldn't be doing when we experience emotion is judging ourselves.
Yeah.
Because I think we're very conditioned to do that.
Yeah.
We're, and I think that that's very destructive and not good at all. I think that
Yeah.
if you're experiencing emotion, you should just, like you said, just acknowledge it. Just,
Yeah.
okay, this is what I'm feeling right now in this moment.
Right. Right. Which brings us into sort of like the avoidance, right? Like I want to avoid this feeling. And so there's the situational, like I don't want to I don't want to get into an argument, or I have this test coming up and the test anxiety, so I'm going to do whatever to sort of avoid that particular feeling, right? And so there's the avoidance factor about running away from your feelings. There's sort of the numbness a bit about it, right? Like I'm gonna either numb myself with substances, or I'm going to engage in self-harming behavior. um so there are this sort of like flip side to it when you don't speak to your belief system and you don't acknowledge that I'm judging or criticizing myself in a way that's also contributing to the distress, right? Because it's sort of the ball, the beach ball that you're trying to push down. The act of pushing down is either the numbness or the withdrawal or the avoidance, right? That you're trying to just not deal with that feeling.
And do you think that that has anything to do with the fact that um I don't know how far back I want to take it, but like, do you think it has anything to do with like the what the media feeds us, whether that be the American dream or the like kind of celebrity culture where everyone is meant to be kind of like happy all the time and kind of like you can scroll on social media and see like I mean now you can't scroll on social media and see just like these happy faces. Like there's a lot of mix now, thankfully, I guess, or not thankfully, but I think that there's a lot of uh ways that the world wants to see us, and I think that showing up as anything other than that
Yeah,
is sometimes not welcome.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that that can be taken to a smaller scale version of like feeling these feelings and then like judging yourself for them or choosing to unplug with a substance or
mm-hmm.
just like doing something that is I don't want to say like mindless, but like doing something that like because I think disengaging your mind for a little bit can be a healthy technique actually.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I
yeah. So
mean?
yeah, just refocusing your attention, right?
Yeah.
I think yeah, it's okay to doom scroll, but if you're doing it all the time, every time, then that should be looked at, right? Like if you find yourself that it's so there's sort of this concept of like, if I'm in disagreement with somebody, either I'm going to dig myself in because I don't want to tolerate the uncomfortability about talking to the other person. So I'm going to intentionally gear away from the relationship, or, and I think you said this, I'm going to lean into the relationship, right? There is sort of that moment like, what's the choice I'm going to make about the situation? Either I because when you're sort of procrastinating, or when you're sort of avoiding, to a certain degree, your brain and your body is sort of processing just what happened. And so you need that space, you sort of need that time to sort of recollect yourself, right? Like going for a walk, right? That's that, when like when you get into an argument with somebody, like, yeah, okay, so things are getting heated, I'm going to take a step back, I'm going to go for a walk, I'm going to recalibrate my nervous system, to be able to come back to lean into the relationship. And I think it becomes unhealthy, the doom scrolling or the binge watching or the engaging in sort of heavy substance use. And again, like, drinking a little wine here or smoking a little weed here. Okay, but like if you're doing it all the time to not deal with the relationship or not deal with the emotion, not okay.
Yeah. And I think also you can even distill that to like every moment you have a choice of moving forward with love or moving forward with fear.
Yeah,
And I think that choosing to move forward with love means building a bridge, not a wall.
yeah,
So I think that I always try to be in love with life,
yeah,
like in a way.
yeah,
So if that means that, I'm putting myself in a hard conversation, but it's gonna close a gap or it's gonna make the long term better.
yeah,
I'm much more interested in participating in that way, even if it's for like a period of discomfort, and that means I have to move through that and deal with that. I think that it's just a healthier way to handle that. And then you can choose to restore yourself in other ways that maybe are more fun or more of those like unplugging things that are like we were talking about, a glass of wine, a little bit of weed, a video game,
Yeah,
doom scrolling,
yeah,
whatever. I
yeah,
think that if we use those things that people sometimes use to numb as like checkpoints or like save slots or like little restore cells like for yourself,
yeah.
then I think that that can give you the kind of chutzpah or whatever you want to call it that you need to get through the more complex feelings
Right.
and the harder times when you're actively, you know.
And you may know a little bit more about this than I do, but there's sort of like the somatic aspect of it, right? Like when you're in conflict, you're you sort of feel it, or when you feel like you're getting ready to or assume you're going to be in conflict, your body is actually reacting to that, right? And so
Yeah.
there's this somatic thing that's happening also too.
Yeah, it will like your body switches into fight or flight rather easily, especially since like we're not functioning from a place of restfulness all the time. Like as a society, like I said, the value just isn't placed there.
Yeah,
So I think that that's why when I check in with myself, when I'm like, what is this feeling? Where is it coming from? Because your body will tell you. Like your body will say like, oh, it's in your stomach or oh, it's like over here or it's in your back or whatever.
yeah,
And I think that people say like, well, oh great, I have this information that it's in my stomach. What does that mean? Like, I think that it gives you a place to like even as simply as like acknowledging where it comes from and like referencing it. Like if you're feeling something in the pit of your stomach, like touch it, massage it, like see if something comes up for you as you're touching this thing and like as you're moving this energy. Because lots of times the reason why we suppress things is because they're uncomfortable, right? And because they cause distress. So, like, sometimes just physically moving the area or that energy will
yeah,
activate something for you or like awaken something for you. And I think that like the fact that we some or not we, but like the fact that many people don't acknowledge that like this body that we're in is more than just like all this. Like
yeah,
like I still can't comprehend that fully.
yeah.
But I think that again, it's like, are you choosing to play the game on easy mode or are you choosing to play the game on like the more advanced mode?
Right, right.
And I think like queer people, people of color, like just people that are othered in general, with however you identify with that, like I think that we don't get the option of playing the game on easy mode.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so from the get, we have to sort of like question
yeah.
things.
The first time you shared that concept with me, I've been sitting with it, and as you know, because I've shared this with you, I struggle a little bit with anxiety because I'm always like, Juno, help me ground myself. Juno, I'm feeling all anxious. Let's do some breathing exercise, Juno. So anxiety is a real thing for me, and so I sometimes realize that I don't engage with either social activities or put myself out there either dating wise because not necessarily of the thing but of the anxiety while I'm going to the thing, right? Sometimes I feel
Yeah.
like the anxiety is more so overwhelming. Like once I'm at the thing, once I'm at the event, for the most part I'm fine, and then like I start engaging, I start having conversations, and I'm sort of start being in the moment, the anxiety is gone. And it's the anticipation of the anxiety that causes me the anxiety, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Well, fear, again, it's either love or fear,
Hmm.
and all fear is false evidence appearing real. It is just the illusion of like this story that you yourself have generated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you struggle with anxiety, if you don't mind me asking?
Um, yes and no. Like, I think that I struggle with processing certain emotions which can lead to me feeling anxious.
Yeah.
And I think that the things specifically that I feel anxious around are usually like I said it last time, like systemic in nature. Like I just when I see like big injustices or things like
Mhm.
that, it gets me like riled up.
Yeah. But I think you do an awesome thing with it, right? Like you decide to use that energy, right? Like you don't let that energy use you, right? Like you sort of like I'm gonna take that, I'm gonna focus it into an activity or a project or you know I'm gonna like write you know whatever. Like I feel like you're really good at refocusing that energy, and I'm just like
Very Kermit from the Muppet Show. You know what it is? It's that like the emotions that I feel are so big that like if I didn't have a way to channel it or move it somewhere else,
yeah
I would be like huddled in a corner. I would be so in such a state of collapse if if I did not know how to channel my emotions
yeah
because the emotions I feel are like very big. So like when I am dating someone, for example, right? Um, it's never just this casual, like, oh, like he's cute. I love spending time with him. It's always like, this is the greatest love of all time. This is like it's like the biggest thing that's ever happened and the biggest thing that'll ever happen. So I'm sure that like in some capacity I'm histrionic. It's just that like I find different ways to move that
yeah.
so that it's not always like like the extreme dramatics of it. But
But I feel like when you love big, right?
oh yeah.
And not that I've known you for very long, but I think the time that we have spent together, I feel like that love of yours, like once you've committed, it's like you're in it.
Oh yeah. Like I can tell you pretty much how all of my exes have taken their coffee. I can tell you like yeah, I'm full in. I'm bought in.
And I'm like, let's write a business plan about this.
And neither is right or wrong. They just are.
You know, not that I know anything about horoscopes, but I feel like that's a for me that's a very Capricorn thing to do. To sort of like I
Very
gotta
much.
I gotta plan this out to the very moment that we have kids.
Well, Capricorns are earth signs and they are very time bound and stuff like that. And Capricorns are also uh children of Saturn, if you will, if we're gonna get really esoteric with
Again, I know nothing about horoscopes, so please
it.
give me some jewels.
So Saturn is all about learning lessons through saying no. So like it would make sense that as a Capricorn you would be very like results driven and stuff like that. Yeah. And like with Scorpio, my placement, we're very like passion. We're very big passion. We used to be ruled by Mars, now we're ruled by Pluto. So we're kind of like the mystery people. And we're very passion and very mystery.
What's the I guess the picture of your sign? Is it like the scales or
No, we're the Scorpion.
oh Scorpio? Yeah, yeah, Scorpio.
Yeah.
Okay.
The scales are Libra,
Libra. Okay.
which is just before me on the wheel.
Okay. Yeah, I think my ex was a Leo. I
Mm.
think it was a Leo.
Summer baby? August?
Yeah. I want to say yes. Don't quote me on
Probably.
this. I'm probably gonna edit this part out. Uh, but he had big emotions. I thought with my anxiety, I had like big emotions, but he definitely had like big emotions.
Well, Leos are ruled by the sun, so they're like very captivating. Uh they're very confident. I don't want to say like they have a well-adjusted Leo, their confidence is like engaging and but like a not so well-adjusted Leo, they like demand attention and they can be kind of like not the best in that way.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Leos are fun signs to deal with. The women
Some
and the
people would
men are
disagree with you
distinctly
on that
different.
one.
What?
Some people would disagree with you on that one if Leos are fun.
Yeah, I mean, like, have you ever had sex with one? They're fun. They're the Scorpio of fire signs.
Nice,
I
nice.
mean, just facts are facts.
We should do a segment about nothing about talking about horoscopes.
I would be totally fine with that. I could riff on horoscopes all day.
Where are we now? Okay, so one more question. What must I do when I feel any emotion discomfort? So what do you do when you feel emotionally emotionally discomforted, discomfort,
Yeah.
discomfort? Yeah,
I I do something artistic.
yeah,
I think that the largest act of rebellion is creation.
yeah,
And I think that whenever I'm feeling discomfort in any capacity, if I can, I will do something artistic in the moment. And if not, I will find a way to use creativity to express the thing that I'm feeling.
yeah,
Because I don't think that just because you're feeling something doesn't mean that one, it's actually how you feel or actually something you believe.
right,
It's just something that's coming up for you. And I think that if we can look at those things and examine them and process them, then like we can let go of it because we will have
yeah,
done something with it.
yeah,
I think that energy exists to be experienced, not to be suppressed. And so if you're being gifted with energy, right? This is how I look at it. If I'm being gifted with energy, even if that energy is uncomfortable at first, I can transmute it into something that I enjoy.
yeah,
So like the fear and frustration around uh how queer people are being treated, I turn that into a poem. Or like, um, I'm gonna be really transparent here, and you can cut this out if you want or not or whatever. But like, I haven't had sex since November of 2023. So like, all those lusty poems you read, those were feelings of like things that I wanted to do, or like things that I wanted to perform with someone, or things that I was desiring to happen. So like, um,
and it
instead
was
of
coming through the screen. And I was reading, I was like, Gina, Now that you tell me how long it's been, I'm like, okay, now I get why that lust was coming through. That sensuality was just like oozing through those words.
yeah, my goal was to make people feel it. Like, I mean, I wanted people to feel like the experience was happening to them because that's what I wanted to happen to me. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna write it out. I mean, what, like, you hear kind of about in history people writing these beautiful love letters to each other, and like, I feel like that's something that's missed right now. Like, we don't
Yeah,
have that same level of intensity with things,
yeah,
or like, when we do have this intense feeling we're not we haven't been given the tools with which to like express them or process them. So like sometimes when someone meets you with this intensity, you're like, what do I do with this? So I figured rather than like handing this to somebody, like these feelings that I'm having, I would write
yeah,
them out. And then at least it would, if it's framed as art, then people can choose to engage with it and they
yeah.
can choose to experience it.
It's interesting because I'm sort of seeing like a progression. So when you first send me the poem that you did, I was like, ooh, this is very Rumi like. And then the second set of poetry that you sort of sent me, I believe last night, I was like, ooh, this is very lusty.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, first of all, the fact that you compared me to Rumi was like a dream come true. I could die in that moment and have been happy and felt complete. Like to be compared to someone like that is wild. Um, but I think that a lot of the stuff that I write is through the lens of like love and expression and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Some of it is like processing more heavy emotions, which like you read and that was heavy. But I think that also that's part of the journey.
yeah,
So we shouldn't completely close ourselves off to that. And I'm all for writing love poems and stuff like that. But
yeah.
I think
I
sometimes
just
the heavier
I
things
just
need to be said.
I just love poetry in general, and like As soon as you sent me, I was like, I was hooked. I was just like, I'm in it. I'm like, take me for the ride. Bit of chocolate, bit of wine while I'm reading when I'm reading.
I love that. Yes.
So as
Light a
we as we're
candle. Be romantic.
a little incense.
Yeah.
As we're getting ready to end here, let's give some folks sort of like tools. So on page 4, right, they sort of like an assignment, like to be able to keep track of what's going on for you. And so on page 4, they sort of said, like, do a time day. So like Monday through Saturday, and then you sort of like, we're starting off with Monday, right? So you sort of like do early in the morning, and then the afternoon, and then you're just tracking the negative emotions, and then you're giving it a scale, right, from like 0 to 5 in the workbook that they give, and then you're giving it sort of like a your reaction to the emotion. So this is like an exercise to do to help you keep track and be mindful of sort of where you're at. And so you sort of could go back on, so maybe a month ago I was at a 5 compared to the middle of the month I was maybe at a 3, right? Being able to tell, am I being tolerant, or am I being sort of intolerant about this particular emotion. So this is just an exercise that folks could do, right? So have a sheet of paper or a journal, and it doesn't have to be, in depth. Again, just like the day and time, and then sort of like negative emotions such as anxiety, anger, sadness, depression, whatever. And then you just give it a scale of like where it is from 0 to 5, keeping it small, and then sort of like your reaction. So as far as like feeling anxious about calling somebody, or had an argument and feeling like, I'm sort of numbing out, right? So just a quick little description. Anything you want to add to that, Juno?
Yeah, I think that daily check-ins are amazing. And I think if you can build them into your day, it's aces. So like for me when I wake up before I get out of bed or anything, I just like ask myself how my body's feeling and I'm like, okay, how's this? Am I experiencing pain here? Why is that? Did I sleep weird? Um, and then every day at 1:30, this has been like a really profound practice for me. Every day at 1:30, my alarm goes off and it says like, what are you grateful for? And I think if you can just acknowledge something you're grateful for, even if it's like, I have clean water to drink today,
Hmm.
or um, I had a really good lunch, or just like it doesn't need to be these profound expressions of gratitude, but even if you could just find like the smallest thing to be grateful for
Yeah.
daily, it will shift your trajectory of like how you think and how you exist in the world because the small thing of like, oh, the cilantro on my salad was really good today. Like it seems like such a small thing, but then maybe later in the night when you're like what are you gonna have for dinner? And you're like, oh, I have like maybe you're out with a friend and you get guacamole and you're like, oh, cilantro here's good too. Like it's just like you'll find that like gratitude will become a theme. Like you'll just start to see it weave itself into the fabric of your existence. And it's
Yeah. Yeah.
gratitude is a profound practice. Highly recommend.
Yeah. I know for me, finding moments in the day where I take full deep breaths, um, either in the morning, or maybe I'm at the gym, or maybe I'm cooking. Just taking that 1 second to sort of just, I haven't really like taken a breath right now, so I'm gonna take a quick moment and like take a nice deep breath. And mind you, it doesn't happen every day, but when I do remember to take a breath, it really sort of just grounds me in the moment. So anything that you could do to be more aware, have a little bit more gratitude, that's the first step, I sort of feel.
Oh, also, I said something the last time we spoke. I can't remember. It just went out of my head. But
Well, knowing you, you'll come back to it in our next segment,
yeah,
because
I just
because you,
remember.
you did that whole like with the book, that you shared with us.
I think I said something about like moving through things. That's like a big theme for me. I constantly talk about moving through things, but that doesn't mean disregarding the thing. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean like pushing it down, moving through
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah.
Like that it's not moving through something or like expressing gratitude is is not like a way of suppression.
Right.
I think that like expressing gratitude or like doing these daily check-ins is a way to like honor yourself really. And that's what this leads back to.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
reclaiming your sovereignty in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so we're almost done with this particular segment, module one. And I sort of feel like we'll finish up module one in our next video and start getting into module two. And so to finish up, there's sort of like the distress escape methods. And I think we talked a little bit about the escape methods, sort of just like substances and what that sort of looks like, and or numbing yourself, and then distress intolerant model. And so we'll sort of go through the model of sort of triggers and sort of navigating through that. And like it's a little bit of an exercise. And then if we have enough time, with me and Juno, with our sort of side conversations, we might get into module two.
Yeah, we get distracted. But that's okay. It's for the best. It's like a
It's
creative process.
It is. It is. I really love it. So before we end, Gina, anything else you wanna share with our viewers?
Um, yes. Um, Remember that using your voice is super important. Be grateful for the world around you. And also, the most rebellious thing you can do is love your neighbor and be compassionate. So do that.
Nice. And please don't forget to hit that like button and subscription. Thanks,
Yes.
folks. See you next
Oh,
time.
oh, and feel free to come to my free breath work. I do
Oh,
two every month.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You do want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, I do one with the new moon and one with the full moon. The new moon breathworks are always about manifestations and bringing things in, and the full moon breathworks are always about letting go energetically of like something that's happening. So there'll be a link in the bio in the bottom, and like I'm assuming Eshin will do that at least.
Yeah, yeah. I will.
I'm
I
gonna
will.
give
I
him,
will, folks. I will. I will. And it's on the
but like
27th, right? On the 27th.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's on the 27th. Then when you hit the link, it'll show you all the available dates and stuff like that. And I would love to have you guys there. It'd be so fun and you'd get to hear some of my writing. Maybe not the erotic stuff, but you definitely get to hear some of my writing.
Maybe
You
just a
you
little, maybe a little bit of erotic, just a little bit.
We'll see. It was just Valentine's Day, so maybe. Um
Yes, 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 yes.
Maybe. But
Especially that first one, of last night that you sent me. That was hot. That was hot.
okay, I'll consider setting the container with that this time. But you liked the
Uh,
writing from last time, right?
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because I think you did a little reading before we got into the exercise.
Yeah, that was I like to set the container with um some type of a positive message
Yeah.
and then
Oh,
I
maybe doing something erotic for that container, maybe not, but that's just my opinion. Like I'm ready to go all the time. So
noted. Next time we share a room at Easton. Oh.
yeah, it was the two of us last time, wasn't it? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's how we met. We were roommates.
yeah, yeah. I thought there were more people in the room with us for some strange
No,
reason.
because we were in the guest house.
Yeah, because we were facilitating that weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, folks. We'll see you next time, and thanks for joining us.